You're listening to Podcast PXN,
a video game podcast
delivering player experience news.
Let's go! What's up, guys? Welcome to Podcast PXN, episode 139. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Prindle, aka Dan is DTM on Twitter, and I'm joined over Discord by one half of the Men in Gitch podcast, Gage Dempster at Gilbo Biggins. Gage, we're without Roshan and Christian this week, and this is totally the first time we've recorded this intro.
Absolutely it is. You know, Dan, it's down here. It's been tough these past couple minutes. You know,
Absolutely,
trying our best. We're doing the best we can, and we're trying to give you guys the news as reliably and as fast as we can. It's hard work.
Yeah.
All right.
It's very hard work. Yes.
It's very hard work.
Shout out to Kuruk, who's joining us in the chat as well, and
Luke.
thank you to everyone else who is also joining us live and participating in the chat. Just as a reminder, we are live each and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube. Just search Podcast PXN. You'll find us there. Twitch.tv/PodcastPXN and Twitter at PodcastPXN. The topic of the show this week, Gage, is Starfield and Redfall's 2023 delay. But first, the show always starts with the quick bites, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Gage, we are starting with some very unfortunate news. Of course, a few days ago, there was a mass shooting in Buffalo, New York, that saw a man travel many miles to essentially hunt down black people and murdered, I believe, 10 people and injured 3 more, which is just absolutely despicable and disgusting. Obviously, this was a completely racially motivated issue, as they've done an investigation on this guy, and it's absolutely awful that this even happens in this day and age, and it should never happen. And if you know anyone that's, even remotely doing this kind of thing, or like thinking this kind of thing, like, yeah, call it out. Like, that's not okay. This should not happen. But Twitch and Discord have both released statements following this, because they were, of course, associated with this, as he live streamed this on Twitch, which is just incredibly awful, and also planned it in Discord apparently as well. They say, "We extend our deepest sympathies to the victims and their families, and we will do everything we can to assist the law enforcement in their investigation." Of course, they added, "The user has been indefinitely suspended from our service, and we are taking all appropriate action, including monitoring for any accounts rebroadcasting this content," which, of course, that last part's important, because you don't want to see that as someone, family members and such. Like, that would be an awful thing to have to see on the internet.
Relive that again and again and again. Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah. No, I mean, what can you say at this point, right? Like, it's insane that this keeps happening over the pigment of your skin. Like, it's incredible that the amount of technology and the amount of information we have at our fingertips nowadays, that there's still so many people who are so ignorant and so just fucking stupid. And yeah, it's rough. And of course, shout out to Fox News for blaming this on video games again. Even though Canada and the UK and Australia have all the same video games and none of the mass shootings. So maybe it's not the video games, Fox News. But yeah, super unfortunate. And hopefully something can be done in terms of, I mean, when it comes to Discord, I don't know if there's a lot they could do, because, I mean, how can you monitor that many chats? And there's also the line of, like, people, who have a dark sense of humor, who might be making jokes about things. And but, like, for Twitch, it's like there's really not some sort of, emergency stop that they can't, that this was able to not only be streamed in its entirety when it happened, but then also restreamed and yeah, Twitch has got a lot of work to do in terms of quality control over there.
Yeah. Not good. Not good at all. Moving from there, Gage, we move into I don't want to say similar story, but it kind of piggybacks off the same sentiment. Respawn was in the news last week on basically the story on their characters in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So I'll just read here from IGN, of course. We have from Ryan Dinsdale. Nora Schrammick, who is a lighting artist at Respawn, who worked on Fallen Order, tweeted the below that multiple employees pushed for a black or female protagonist during development before the game launched in 2019, but were rejected because the game and wider franchise already represented those communities. She says, when I worked on Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, a lot of the devs wanted and advocated for the main character to be black and or a woman. Schrammick said in a tweet spotted by Games Radar, the reasons were apparently given for not going in that direction were because we already have 2 black people in the game, and Rey is a woman, so we can't do that too. Yeah, I don't like that at all. And the bigger thing to me is video games as a whole don't really have a lot of black main protagonists as their main characters. Like, that's great. You have great supporting characters that are African American. That's fantastic, but that doesn't substitute for something else. And if the devs are pushing for that, why would you not want to respect what the devs are wanting? She did follow up and say that apparently there were changes made after she left in this regard. So at least, Respawn reacted to that. But it is unfortunate that it was kind of put in that position. And not to say that, Cal Kestis is a bad character, because I really like Cal Kestis's character. But at the same time, what could we have gotten if Cal Kestis wasn't the main character?
Right. Gee, I'm not as familiar with this story. So the thing that gets me is that it's were these the writers and the creatives who were pushing for this, and they were told no by somebody who's higher up? In which case, that means that Cal Kestis was not the original character that they wanted, right? Correct. So you're absolutely right. What if Cal Kestis was a compromise? What could the story have looked like if the writers were given, the freedom to write the story they wanted to write? Because from what I heard is that the story in Jedi Fallen Order is really good, right? So it's extremely unfortunate. It's so weird. And I don't know how to tackle this. I mean, you can probably piggyback off of this or understand what I mean, but it's as you and I sit here, 2 white men, it's I really don't get it. I don't understand what the issue is. I don't know. It's so hard to wrap your head around it if it's a concept that's totally foreign to you. I mean, I don't understand what the issue is. Literally the pigment of your skin. I mean, there's so many videos you can watch on it where it's this is why people look a certain way, and they show a demographic of the world and where the sun hits, and it's literally the pigment of your skin. That's it. That's it. Yeah. I don't get it. It's super upsetting. I don't know. We can have 16 different aliens, but more than 2 black people is pushing it, apparently.
Right. Yeah, it's insane for sure. And along with that, female protagonists, we don't have many of those either in video games. And of course, we know the big ones, Lara Croft and Joanna Dark and stuff like that. But in comparison to male white protagonists, it's not even close.
Right, we're just now starting to see female protagonists become more and more common. But it's funny when you mention how little African American or black protagonists there are in video games, main characters that you play as. You said that, and first of all, I realized how little there are, and then I thought about, of the ones that there are, how many of them are caricatures and over, and I think of Borderlands and Crackdown and stuff like that, where it's a lot of them are not even taken seriously as well. So the amount of serious black protagonists in video games that actually have something to say about the experience is incredibly small. So for them to go we can't do it, it's I would love to know who said no and who was pushing for it. Because if it was the creatives and the writers pushing for it, I mean, that's the story that they wanted to tell, and they had to compromise for the sake of appealing to a wider demographic, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to wrap your head around when you don't think that way. It doesn't make any sense.
Agreed. And again, piggybacking off of you as well, last week we had a conversation about Mafia, the Mafia franchise, and we were talking about how Lincoln Clay is like a great character. I loved Lincoln Clay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's funny is that Mafia 3 is one of those games. I hated the gameplay of that game.
Agreed.
I suffered
Agreed.
through that game because of how compelling Lincoln Clay was.
Yes.
That game, if you play the first hour and a half of that game, you've played it in its entirety.
Yes.
It does not change its tune at all. But I've suffered through all of it because that was such a good performance
Yes.
and a really well written character. So I guess that's one game recently that's done a really good job and actually making the main protagonist's race mean something in the gameplay and in the story, which is really well done and really, I thought, really poignant. But yeah, I mean, we're supposed to get one of those every 6 years, and anything more is too much.
Yeah. Agreed. I need more of it.
Yeah.
Moving.
Doesn't hurt anyone. You've got plenty of white protagonists to choose from.
Yeah.
Fucking angry gamers, settle down.
Yes. Agreed. Moving on, Gage. Dead Space remake is officially launching January 27th, 2023, with a full reveal coming on Halloween. That's a nice little Halloween gift we're getting. And also, the Dead Space developers, of course, is what's the name?
Visceral, isn't it?
No. Visceral is shut down. Oh my god.
Right. Never mind. They were axed.
Crap, why am I literally just blanked on their name. I know who they are. They made the Star Wars Squadrons game.
Oh, Criterion.
No. Criterion
Did they
helped.
not do the Star Wars game?
Criterion helped on it. Why am I... Oh my gosh. It starts with Motive. Gosh. Motive. My brain is not working today.
We do a video game podcast here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, Motive. I know their name. That's why it's so frustrating. Anyway.
I didn't know it either. No, I was just as lost.
But no, they showed off some really cool art assets from the game, which is really cool on YouTube. They had 4 different stream videos. So one was immersive environments, visual effects, character models, and lighting effects. And my God, every time we see a little glimpse of this game, it looks so good. And I really love these dev diaries that they're doing that like really go in depth on the decisions that they made for the remake and like how they're justifying them. Like the lighting in this, oh my gosh, it looks so good.
I really commend Motive, and I mean not to bring everything back to like Halo, but as an example, obviously with the rocky launch of Halo Infinite and the decisions that they make, I'm wondering if this is even what's the way to word this? If this is more beneficial to a development team where it's like instead of having an open beta 3 months before the game comes out, if there's just like throughout early development,
yeah.
You know, like we're still. When was the first dev stream they did? What if like
a few months
3 months ago?
Yeah.
So almost a year out from where the game is supposed to launch, and they had the audio dev blog come out, and a lot of people were like, "Hey, this is a little weird," and then they changed it, and they were able to change it because it's so early. So I almost wonder. I would not mind to see this sort of strategy taken by other developers because this is really. It's a win-win. I mean, the developers get to show what they're working on. They get to show you the progress they're making.
Yep.
And people, without playing it, without needing to make vertical slices of the game, can sort of provide feedback. And they've only had one negative reaction. Every other dev stream has been like, "Wow, guys, this looks amazing." Yeah, and it seems like it's a really healthy relationship between developer and gamer audience. So I love this.
I very much agree with you. That's a really nice way to do it because, like you're saying, you don't have to build a vertical slice. You don't have to waste development resources doing that. They're just making the game and then showing you it and saying, all right, what don't you like? What do you like? And that is a great point in terms of Halo Infinite because if they had done that, they would have found out a lot of the issues that the community had before the game came out, and they would have also, not had to necessarily build that beta last year and, just launch the game the way that people wanted it.
Exactly. They could have reprioritized, right? Like if we got a dev stream like this, let's say a year before the original date of Halo Infinite, and they're like, this is what customization looks like. Everybody would have been like, hey, we don't like this. What about this, that, and the other? And then maybe something that's as core and as big to the game like that could have changed. So I really like this idea from developers. This is a really good idea, and I hope to see more of this, because to me this has already become. It seems like it's been, again, more beneficial to the dev team than if they were to have an open beta. Obviously, this is a single player game, and they don't normally do that. But I mean, the logic still stands, right? If Battlefield had something like this, leading up to it, and people saw that they were getting rid of class based for specialists, that would have been challenged right away, and they might have reprioritized. So I love this. I love what Motive is doing. This is great. I highly doubt the release date, because nothing launches on the release dates anymore. So we'll see. I can't wait to play it in March when it launches, but it looks great. It looks great. And I tried to play Dead Space for the first time recently on the computer, and it does not age well. So this will be. I'm eager to jump into this experience. I have not played Dead Space properly.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
Moving on, Gage. Resident Evil, the TV series on Netflix, has officially gotten a little teaser. I think you saw this, right? You saw this teaser?
I did. I was very, very impressed.
Very impressed. I thought it looked good as well. I'm definitely intrigued by it.
Yeah, it's Resident Evil's weird, because they had the movies way back with Mila Jovovich that pretty much tossed all of the source material aside, and they were those movies, to me, I've only seen like the first 3 maybe, but those movies to me were in the so bad it's good category. Like, it was dumb fun, whatever. I don't really care. I don't care what's happening at all, but it's fun.
Yeah.
And then they had the recent movie that stuck to its source material extremely closely, and it was awful. It was really bad. It was so bad it's bad. I did not enjoy it at all. So this looks like a healthy medium, and it looks really good. I love Lance Reddick. I mean, I think all of us on this podcast all 4 of us are huge fans of Lance Reddick.
Yeah.
When I heard that he was announced as Wesker, again, tying back to the whole diversity thing, it's like, he doesn't look like Wesker, but everything about him, his voice, his presence, I was like, that's an excellent choice.
Yes.
So if you can just get past that nonsense, it's like, oh, this is a great choice. So I was pleasantly surprised with that trailer, and I'm hoping it's good. I'm excited, and maybe this will be the first video game series that we do our little book club idea for. We'll talk more about that later, I guess. But
yes,
I'm excited. It looks good.
And
what did you think?
Yeah, kind of circling back to your thing about Lance Reddick and diversity, like that's part of and not to go back to our pre-show discussion for people who were watching the pre-show, but like that's kind of why like I went into the Halo TV series with like a completely blank mind. Like I didn't want to go in as like a huge Halo fan and like be disappointed because it didn't, stick to the source material or anything like that. That's why I like that show, because it's like it can literally do whatever it wants to do. It can be whatever it wants to be. And like the Miranda in the show is not the Miranda in the games, and that's not a bad thing. Like she's a completely different actress. She isn't she's a scientist in the show, whereas in the game she's more so a military commander. And in the show also, Captain Keyes is a very different character than what he is in the games. And also, again, the diversity shows, as the actress and actor is both African American, whereas in the games they're white. So like that's exactly why I agree with you. I like Lance Reddick as a actor, so like having him in this role as Wesker is like really good. I can't wait to see like what his performance looks like for that. So yeah, it's
such good casting. It's such good casting. Like, yeah, to be the ominous big bad, and he has that voice. I can't wait. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Miranda Keyes is probably my favorite character.
Yes.
One of my favorite characters in the show. And like you said, they switched the race for the TV show, and it did not matter at all because the actress nailed it, and that's all that should matter.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this. Hopefully, it's good.
Agreed. Moving on, Gage. Criterion Games has officially absorbed Codemasters Cheshire to work on Need for Speed. So, of course, EA acquired Codemasters, I think, last year, and this is just one team of Codemasters and Cheshire specifically. So, apparently, they most recently worked on Onrush, which I hadn't even heard of it before reading this article, but apparently Onrush was a racing game for people that don't like traditional racing games, according to IGN. But yeah, I thought this was interesting and is kind of indicative of where Criterion is at, in my opinion. Like Criterion, so many years ago was like the racing game developer, and now like so many times over they've been, you know, torn apart by EA. I think at one point their studio was like less than 30 people because EA was taking them down to nothing. Essentially, they became like a support studio, but now they're slowly building them back up, and I guess we're gonna see some more Need for Speed here soon, possibly. So we'll see.
I mean, yeah, we're gonna touch on this with Tots, but like EA is horrible at managing studios, and
Right.
like you said, like they're building Criterion back up, but you have to hope that enough of the core members of the original Criterion is there to be built back up. Otherwise, you've gotten rid of all of the talent and the sort of innovative minds, and now you're just building up the studio again with the same name, but it might not be the same team that has that same drive. No pun intended, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the next Need for Speed. I hope it works out. Did you play Need for Speed Heat at all?
I did not.
So that game I did not play it until like just last year, actually.
Okay.
Is
that like the neon-y one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the most recent one, and it was a surprisingly really, really good game. Really fun. Like especially if you're somebody who plays Forza Horizon, and you're like, oh, this is great. I just wish, there was more customization. Like that game is fantastic for customization, and it's very arcadey. It's kind of like it plays a lot like those Asphalt games on your phone, kind of, but just obviously a lot more polished, and it looks a lot nicer. But it's totally fun. That game is so much fun to play with friends, in a way that it's more fun. You have more fun actually doing stuff in the game with your friends than Forza Horizon 5, because I find that Forza Horizon 5 is an amazing game, but it's a lot of like progress by yourself and then meet up with your friends and just show them the cool things that the cool cars that you have, and then go back to playing by yourself. Really, like it's not really a very social game in the way that I think they wanted it to be. So I highly recommend trying out Need for Speed Heat, and I am eagerly waiting for the next one, because this last one fixed a lot of the problems in the previous games.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that with the acquisitions that they made with Codemasters and stuff like that, that this game really nails the driving, because that's the only thing it's missing. It does customization way better than Forza or Gran Turismo. So if they can nail that the feel of it, then I think they'll have a real winner on their hands.
They'll drive that thing right out of the park. I don't know. That was terrible fun. Moving into our next one, Gage, an Alan Wake TV series is officially in development at AMC. And also a little quick tidbit here as well. Alan Wake Remastered is also coming to Nintendo Switch, they announced. So we got some Alan Wake goodness coming. Sam Lake from Remedy says, we were quite a while ago talking about the Alan Wake TV show. Well, AMC, the wonderful, wonderful home for the absolutely brilliant TV shows, has bought the rights for Alan Wake, and we have been collaborating on making a TV show happen. This is an interesting pairing, I feel like, because I don't think that AMC. Well, I guess that's not true, because like Walking Dead is very horror-esque. I was gonna say I can't think of any like AMC shows that are horror, but I guess Walking Dead sort of is, but it's not really horror. I guess more gory.
They did do the miniseries The Terror, which is one of the greatest miniseries you can watch ever of all time, and I highly recommend everyone. It's fantastic.
Heck yeah.
But you're right. They don't have a huge portfolio in that sort of market.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it would be cool to have like Alan Wake in this format, because obviously like the first game the first game almost felt like a TV show. Like you were interacting with this thing that it felt very like chapter-esque, and I feel like that's partially because of like the book writing mechanic of it, where he's like basically writing a book talking to himself, like right. I'm about to move down this dark hall and turn left, and I'm just like, I love that shit.
Yeah, I work like AMC has a mixed track record, because obviously they do Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, which are some of the best TV that you can watch, and then Obviously, there's The Walking Dead, which has, in terms of quality, fluctuated
Yeah.
wildly.
Yes.
So I guess it all really depends on how serious they are about doing this right and doing this proper and sort of honoring the source material in a way that it's true to the games. But I think this is exciting. This is really exciting. I couldn't get into the game. I tried. It didn't click for me. Again, it could just be something that is very dated and it doesn't hold up well on PC. But the second one, taking more of a survival horror
Yes.
aspect, has me very, very curious. I'm very interested in that, and I think that you're right. From what I know of Alan Wake, it probably would lend itself really well as a TV series.
Yes.
This is good. It's exciting. It's an exciting time because we're seeing more and more video game properties being developed into TVs, and even if not all of them are great or not all of them are what we want, it's exciting because there's a lot of great stories in this medium that I would love for like my parents to be able to watch and know and all that stuff. So I'm excited.
Totally. Our next story, Gage, will probably interest some of our audience if Glenn's watching, and also maybe us as well. Dying Light 2's first story DLC is officially launching in September. I think it was supposed to come sooner, but they posted on their Twitter page, "Dear Pilgrims, your feedback always has the highest priority for us, and we want to be honest and transparent with you. We still need a bit more time to develop the first story DLC. It is now planned to be released in September." They've got a little post-launch roadmap here for 5 years of support. They only have, the next few months lined up, but very intrigued to see what this is and see if it kind of continues the story. I haven't even finished Dying Light 2, Gage. I don't know if you have.
Neither have I.
Okay. But I guess it'll be interesting to see if like the DLC is going to take the approach of like continuing the story, or if it's going to be like a standalone thing. That's always like an interesting decision for developers to decide like what they want to do with DLC.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Dying Light 2 is weird. It was a game that was extremely. It was a roller coaster coming up to release of really the reveal and being excited, then hearing about the things coming out of the studio and the turmoil, and getting worried again, and then obviously the delay after delay and not hearing about it, and then the game came out and it was good, but I don't know if it hit the way that I wanted it to, and I might not get back into it unless there's another big game drought, right? Which there might be this early summer, so maybe that'll be a good time to jump back into it. But I don't know. I'm kind of it's honestly it's the most disappointing for a game to me when you're just kind of lukewarm on it. Like it doesn't do anything extremely bad. It's pretty good. Like it's a beautiful game. It looks gorgeous on Series X, but like it's just kind of like I'm just kind of feeling meh. Like I don't know. How are you feeling about Dying Light 2? Like, are you excited to jump back into some DLC?
Yeah, I feel like part of that too is like the launch issues that they had with co-op, and that kind of drained interest pretty quickly. I feel like for people, because that is a very co-op-y game. Like if you're not playing with friends, I feel like it's not as fun of an experience because you're kind of enjoying that world and the different weapons that you can customize and that kind of stuff. Like it loses interest a little bit when you're playing that solo for sure. I feel like, but yeah, we've got a lot. No, not a lot. We've got a few announcements of 505 Games Showcase event. I was going to put this, it's actually a funny story. I was going to put this in our PXN News of the Week, and then I clicked on the link like that I had saved throughout the week. I was like, there's really not that much here for being like a big showcase, but I mean, it's 505 Games. They're not a huge publisher or anything, but there's some interesting things in here. The first thing is the Among the Trolls, which is a supernatural survival game set in the forests of Finland, which this trailer looks freaking really, really beautiful. I don't know if you had a chance to check that out yet, but it looks pretty.
It does. Of all the things announced, this looks really good. I'm very interested in this. I'm a big survival games guy. I love survival games, so I like this.
I agree. We also got a Stray Blade, which is a Souls-like that pairs an anthropologist with a spell-casting wolf gremlin. So this might be up Christian's alley since he is a big Soulsborne fan.
Right.
Definitely, it's not going to be my type of game with that description, but yeah, that's interesting. And then there's Eodin Chronicle Rising, which offers a glimpse at the much-anticipated Eodin Chronicle 100 Heroes. I don't even know what I just said there. But 100 Heroes continues to be nowhere to be seen following its delay into 2023. Instead, Rising was showcased one more time for fans who haven't yet picked up the town building spin-off. Oh, okay. I guess it's a town building spin-off set in the Eodin Chronicle world. So that's something.
So definitely a bunch of words that you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a game called Miasma Chronicles, which is a game about a boy and his robot from the developers of Mutant Year Zero. Apparently, the showcase's final game. It was the showcase's final game, which was a teaser for the game. A brief trailer featuring a boy, his robot, and what seems like an extra-dimensional force. It's being developed by the Bearded Ladies, of course, the student behind Mutant Year Zero. Which Mutant Year Zero always kind of intrigued me with the look of that game, but I never really got into the game itself. But yeah, interesting stuff from 505. Gage, Nintendo Switch has become the 4th highest selling system of all time in the U.S. Only the Xbox 360, PS2, and Wii have sold more, which is insane to me.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, God bless them. Nintendo, for all of its faults, and I was definitely part of that crowd coming from the Wii U, saying like, man, they just stick to software, just stop, and then and then they revealed the Switch. And I was when they're sort of ramping up with their next hardware, I was like, please don't let it be a mobile. Just do if you're gonna do hardware, just do an actual proper thing. The Switch came out and it's great. It's a great system. It is. Yeah. It's fantastic. I didn't use mine as much as I wanted to, so I got rid of it. But I know a lot of people who love it and use it, and I have nothing wrong with this. I have no complaints with the system at all. It's an incredible little handheld. It does a lot, and congrats to Nintendo because they refuse to die. They refuse. they refuse two things. They refuse to die and they refuse to change their ways. And somehow those two things haven't conflicted with each other at all. They're still here.
Yeah.
So,
certainly.
Congrats to
Nintendo. Very good. Glenn does say in the chat, Gage, you don't know if it hit the way you wanted it to. Well,
I don't know what he's.
I guess he's referring to Dying Light 2, I think.
Okay. Yeah. And he's also chiming in that I didn't even have a Wii U. I didn't own the Fisher-Price toy. You're right, Glenn.
Yeah. Wii U was like a half step too to like Switch because they had the handheld, but you had to stay close to your console. So it was like, it didn't do enough.
Not great.
Gage, next up, we've got Elden Ring, which has overtaken Call of Duty Vanguard as the highest selling game of the last year. That is insane to me.
Woo!
Like, I don't.
That is monumental. I really it's not going to get a lot of traction, and I get it. There's not much to say, but what has to be said is that this is insane. The Elden Ring is an extremely niche game that has exploded into the mainstream, and I think it says a lot. Not to rehash old wounds, but it says a lot about game design and a developer who says this is the way we want to make our games, and we're not changing. And they've obviously gotten a lot of flack in the past, but clearly, that type of game with that restriction and that level of challenge. It speaks to people like this. It overtook that's insane. Yeah, that is absolutely insane.
Of course, there's people out there that'll throw in the caveat of COD Vanguard was like one of the lower end selling Call of Duty games, and they usually attribute that to the setting because I guess the World War II versions don't sell as well as the modern versions, but still. Call of Duty is a massive brand, and for Elden Ring to pass that's pretty impressive.
It's a massive brand. It's also a very accessible game.
Yes.
And it was overtaken by a niche developer, like a not as well known developer with a very hard sort of inaccessible, like like I can see how people could make arguments, but I still feel like that doesn't nullify how crazy this is. Like,
Yeah.
From Software, they've got to be just riding this wave of just feeling like incredible, because I'm pretty sure Elden Ring has also sold more than their past games combined. I think like a lot of their games sell 4 or 5 million, which is obviously no small feat, but like
Right.
this is insane. Like I have nothing but respect for From Software. I love that. Even though I am somebody who is very pro accessibility settings in games, at the end of the day, my philosophy on it is that the people making the game get to decide how the game is, and I respect them for sticking to their guns and making a game that is challenging, and it is hard, and it's obviously people love it. Like I can't believe that it outsold COD Vanguard. That is absolutely insane.
Yep. Insane. Moving on to our next story, Gage. After selling multiple Western studios, curiously enough, Square Enix is looking to build new studios and acquire new ones as well.
No, if only they had some studios that they could have not sold and kept.
So this literally throws out my theory out the window when I said that they maybe were selling studios to, I don't know if you were on that episode or not, but I thought that they were selling studios to make themselves more attractive to be acquired themselves,
right,
by like Sony or someone like that. But yeah, if you're building more studios, and like I just don't understand. Yeah, why did you get rid of these established and pretty good studios already? Like, very curious by that.
Very curious. I mean, it's important to remember, like as much as it takes, a certain level of drive and intelligence to run a company at this level, and as we've seen with, unfortunately, the likes of Activision, sort of a certain level of heartlessness that's required to it. These are at the end of the day just people, and this to me screams that like they don't know what to do. Like I think Avengers really threw them off course. Like I don't think they were expecting that game to flop as hard as it did.
Yeah.
I don't think they were expecting what is People Can Fly, their game that they did for them, Outriders. I don't think they were expecting Outriders to not perform as well as it did, even though the game, like I enjoyed the game, a lot of people liked it. Like it got a good 7 out of 10 generally responsive review from critics.
Yep.
So I think, to me, this looks like a studio that doesn't, or a publisher that doesn't know what to do, because this is totally nonsensical. You're right. Why, selling a bunch of studios, trying to slim yourself down to be acquired, I can get behind that logic, but then to turn around and be like, actually, no, we're gonna build new studios and we're gonna acquire some as well. It seems like they don't know, they're struggling. They don't know how to go forward.
Yeah.
They've been making questionable decisions, for a while though. Even letting IO walk away with Hitman.
Right.
As much as I love that decision, that's a fantastic decision. That is baffling for a publisher to do. To just, yeah, you know what? Be free. You don't owe us anything, and also you take one of our most valuable IPs with you. Here you go.
Yeah.
Very strange. I don't know what they're doing over there.
And maybe it is that they want to have, more of a Japanese-focused development team, because making more traditionally Japanese games, because obviously those are all Western studios that they let go. So possibly, I guess that's their plan, to build more Japanese-based studios or games that are more Japanese-influenced.
Which, that in and of itself is very strange, because normally, I mean, like we say with all these companies, the bottom line is how do we make more money? Where if that is what they're doing, I would respect that, where they're like, no, we're going to scale down and we're going to focus on this market, knowing full well that it means they will make less money. I would almost respect that if that is their plan, because then it's like you're devoting yourselves to one sort of demographic to make games for this certain, geographic area and the culture and the likes and the tastes. I would totally respect that, but I don't as of right now, I have no idea what they're actually planning on doing, but that would be pretty cool. I would like to see that.
Agreed. Gauge our next story, more survival horror, of course, is so good. Callisto Protocol is officially getting some news this week, and we also got a little teaser image that was shown by Glenn Schofield, who was one of the founders of their team. Obviously, this game is very much of interest to us because, or me in particular, obviously you didn't play Dead Space, as you said before, but Glenn Schofield is literally one of the original creators of Dead Space at
I did
Visceral
know that.
Games. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm very interested to see what this is going to be this week. Hopefully, we get it soon in the next 2 days, I'm assuming. But yeah, the teaser image Glenn gave, he says, if you don't already follow Callisto the game on Twitter, now might be a good time to start. Look for some news next week, meaning this week. Until then, here's a close-up of one of the creatures from our world-class character team. They're incredible. Happy Friday the 13th. Yeah, and that looks so good, so gory. And we're literally in a survival horror renaissance right now, Gage.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
wait a minute, is 2023 literally going to be the survival horror year? We're getting Dead Space, Callisto Protocol, and Alan Wake 2 all in 2023?
I'm here for it. I love it. It's a great genre.
Yes.
And it makes sense. It makes sense because look at the success of the Resident Evil remakes,
Yeah.
right? And even Resident Evil Village, right? People like that genre. But I'm not a fan of Dead Space, but I am absolutely here for the Callisto Protocol. I'm almost more excited for that because it is something that doesn't have heritage, and I can kind of get in on the ground floor. But no, I mean, you and I are both big fans of the Expanse, which obviously is sort of space horror. It has space horror elements, and I did kind of get that vibe from this. So I'm extremely excited. I also just want to mention, because I don't think we've talked about Callisto while I've been on the show, that Striking Distance is a fucking killer name for a development studio. That is such a fucking awesome name.
Yes.
So yeah, it is a small thing. It doesn't matter at all. But I just, when he announced that at I think was it the Game Awards?
Yes.
I think where he announced it, I was like,
Yep.
That's a fucking kick-ass name for a video game studio. So that's awesome. I'm very excited, and yeah, I know that a lot of his brain power is what made Dead Space really sort of become what it is. So yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm really excited for Callisto. This is gonna be. I think this is gonna be.
Agreed. All right, we're moving into more horror here, Gage. Silent Hill and Bloober Team, according to some reports, have some projects on the way. But first, we'll talk about Bloober Team. Bloober Team is apparently working on 3 titles. One is a Konami partner project. One is a new IP with Private Division, which, of course, Private Division is the indie publisher that's under the 2K umbrella. And also another new game in pre-production. So very interesting there. And that ties into Konami and Silent Hill because Silent Hill 2 remake is apparently being developed by Bloober Team. Which is very, very interesting. But not only that, apparently Konami is planning 3 Silent Hill titles, Gage, and the other 2 are a smaller Silent Hill title from Annapurna Interactive, which is interesting. They, of course, do episodic type games, so that'll be some kind of episodic game. That'll be interesting. And a new mainline Silent Hill game. So, of course, the new mainline Silent Hill game, Gage, must be that one dude who was teasing fans for a long time, right? With his fake studio or whatever.
Absolutely. It must be.
Yeah.
It's also Kojima as well. It's everything.
Yeah. It's
the next Silent Hill game is you, Daniel. It's you.
It's me.
It is
yeah.
you.
And I didn't put that in here. I forgot. But I forget the name of the developer, but Blue Box, yes. They were also kind of exposed this week in terms of what they actually are. There was some good reporting that was done essentially saying that they were a hoax. I mean, the whole thing is just a play on getting people to pay for something that isn't really anything. Like they're a playable demo, I guess.
They've done this before too. I mean, you can, and that's the thing. It very much became very quickly, as many things do on Twitter. It became a team thing where you're either pro developer or against developer, and it's unfortunate that the conversation got sort of muddled down to that because a lot of people on Reddit were like posting these massive threads, like with links and proof and receipts, and it's like they've done this like 6 times. They have quote unquote started development for like 6 games, and for one reason or another, none of them have ever released. I think one released for a week and then was pulled. So unfortunately, like the writing was on the wall, and it looks so. Yeah, I mean that's the reason why I thought it had to be Kojima at first, because I was like,
Yeah.
well, Sony signed on for this. They gave them their own app on the Sony store. That's never happened before for not for The Last of Us, not for God of War, not for Spider-Man. Like there must be something. It has to be Kojima, because otherwise it must be a scam. So, I thought it was Kojima at first, then more and more went by, and I was like, this doesn't look like Kojima. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. And unfortunately, it turns out that he did sort of bank on. I would love to see what his pitch was, and maybe it was that like the reporting you're talking about, some of the expose that came out is that they had made these fake Silent Hill 5 images. So I do wonder if he went to Sony and said, we are doing this, nobody knows, it's super top secret or something. Like, how did they get this financing and this exclusivity deal and this real-time app? Like, this is going to make a really great, like, art, like a big, huge article or something like that one of these days. Like, or even like a documentary or something. Like, I'm so curious to know what happened with it.
Yes. Yeah, it's insane. Absolutely insane. And I was on record on this podcast giving the dude way too much credit. And
we all, you know what I mean? Like people, it almost seems like it can't happen nowadays with how much technology there is and how much communication across the world, that it's kind of like, I don't blame you for thinking that, because it's like, well, he couldn't possibly fool PlayStation, right? So there's got to be, but right. It's nuts. It's crazy. Yeah, I would love to find out. I hope that there's a documentary about this guy one day, or somebody does like Jason Schreier does like a good 10-page article about. Like, I'm so curious to know how this guy got away with it, especially with his track record.
True. So look forward to those Silent Hill projects possibly coming. But next, Gage, Fall Guys is officially going free to play on June 21st and is also launching on Xbox and Nintendo Switch for the first time to coincide with that as well. Very cool. I played this on PlayStation 4 when it first came out, and it's a very fun game, fun like mini game style, just like classic, really good romp fun stuff. Yeah. Battle Royale, I guess you could call it, but for mini games.
Free to play works for this game really well. Like, this is definitely like, it's like a party game, right? It's something you bust out when you got people over and you want to laugh and have fun. So really good move going free to play. I'm excited to see what they do next, because I've kind of had my fill with Fall Guys. I enjoyed every second of it. I've got no qualms with it. And I'm really excited to see what these guys do next, because I think that it's a genre that there's not a lot of. Like, when you think of reality shows or like American Ninja or Wipeout or stuff like that, like, it's fun to watch people go through these obstacle courses and try to make it. So imagine a game, like if their next game is something similar like this, but maybe it has like Rockstar level ragdoll, right? Like that would be so fun. That would be so cool. So yeah, I'm happy with their success, and this is a good move going to free to play, and I eagerly await to see what they do.
Very cool. Very cool. I'll be in on it on Xbox. Check it out again. It's been a while. Lastly here, Gage, Techland has revealed, last of our quick bites. They haven't exactly been quick bites, but that's okay. Long bites. Call them long bites today. Techland reveals first concept art of an open world fantasy RPG with talent from both Arcane and CD Projekt Red. I thought this looks really cool. The concept art looks very like dystopian, like I don't know how else to describe it. Dystopian.
It looks like it's got like a very Mayan sort of architecture look to it. I mean, funny enough, because Christian's down in Mexico, but it very much has that. The architecture is very much like that. So looks really cool.
Very much, yeah. That's a great description. But apparently this features a man looking at some sort of ancient city surrounded by lush trees, pink vegetation, and waterfalls. Notably, the architecture of this ruin isn't traditional medieval England in its aesthetic, so we may be in for something slightly left field for AAA fantasy. Very interested in this. Of course, they've employed narrative director Carolina Stacria and narrative lead Arkadiusz Diaz Borowick. That's a difficult name. Both of
Definitely
both of whom previously worked on Witcher 2 and Witcher 3, which that's really, really good news there, because I think Witcher has really good writing. So very interested there. Moving into our Street Meat Gauge, there's a rumor that the Gears of War series is going to get remasters in the vein of the Master Chief Collection, which this is very nice timing that this just came out, because I have a video posting on Friday that includes this. And this, I had it in my video before the story even came out, so that was kind of cool.
nice.
But yeah, apparently, remember when they're on the latest episode of Xbox Era Podcast, co-host Nick Baker said, remember when there was a rumor mill a while back where I said there was a Microsoft franchise that's getting the Master Chief Collection type treatment? I am of the belief that it is coming this year. And he was coy about which series he was discussing, but then later he name checked Gears. And he even named the timestamp on YouTube at that section. Oh, Gears Collection. So apparently he's alluding to Gears there. But I'd be super down for Gears Collection, and hopefully they've learned. Microsoft has learned from the trials and tribulations from the Master Chief Collection, and have a much better launch for Gears of War Marcus Phoenix Collection.
Right. This is a great idea. It's a really good idea. And I think there's very few franchises that it could be. Like, it wouldn't make sense to do a Forza, because obviously you play the most recent one that has all of its online features, so it doesn't really make sense for it to be Forza. And I can't really think of any other it could be Fable possibly, but Gears of War, yeah, it sounds about right. And if all they gotta do is change that stupid sprinting animation, and I will play this all day long. All they gotta do. No, I'm joking, but I might jump into this if this is a thing. I mean, obviously it'll come to Game Pass, so
yeah.
Maybe this will be something that me, you, and the guys can play, and yeah, it's a really good idea. I would love to jump back into Gears, because I haven't played. I think Gears 2 was the last one I played to completion, and I dabbled in 3, and I haven't played them since. So it's been, over a decade since I've really gotten into Gears. I have very fond memories of the first one and the second one specifically.
I really like the story of Gears. It doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion. The original trilogy was great, and even the new trilogy has been great thus far. So, story.
I heard amazing things about 5, and I might give that a go.
Yeah.
And I really agreed with you too when earlier on a previous episode where you said that when it comes to Xbox and their Naughty Dog equivalent, like, it's looking like it's the Coalition, because Gears 5 was like absolutely gorgeous, and it had a fantastic story, and it was well paced, and it reviewed really well. So yeah, I think a collection is, with all the buzz that they've gotten from 5, this is a perfect time to get people back into the franchise as a whole.
Agreed. We've got a couple of stories from Jeff Grubb and Tom Henderson kind of tag teaming here, Gage and Street Meat. So the first one, they're both saying that The Last of Us remake is coming this holiday, which, woo!
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Is this going to be the only exclusive from Microsoft or Sony this fall? Because we don't have anything else right now from either one.
Honestly. I don't know. I'm excited for The Last of Us remake, because I feel like this could be the first PlayStation game that gets a day and date release on PC, because the game is theoretically already 10 years old, right? Yeah. So why, like, you know what I mean? Normally they do their 2-3 year wait, but it's like, well, this game really came out in 2013. So I'm hoping that this comes to PC, because that is where I would love to play it. I'm also hoping that maybe this has something to do with factions, and maybe factions is also involved somehow. Like I said, I've gone on record of having this prediction of some sort of Last of Us collection, where number 1, number 2, and factions, and hopefully we get some sort of something. But the fact that there's anything Last of Us coming this year is very exciting.
Yes,
I know a lot of people, and myself kind of included, it's like, is it really necessary? Because the first game holds up so well, but Rashan and I don't know if you mentioned this on the podcast or if this was a private conversation, but I did say to Rashan, it's like, man, I would love to play as Joel with all these new brutal melee mechanics, and just like, because the melee was great in the first game, but like obviously it's aged since, and now you've got the dodging and the dynamic combat, and it's like, man, if I can go back and just play as as Joel and just be this tank. And I mean, I would love it. So I'm excited. I'm hoping that this is true.
And you know what, Gage? I might be beating The Last of Us remake before I even beat The Last of Us 2. Because I still
God damn it, get on it.
I still haven't gone back to it. I'm still upset about it. But the other story, they're also saying that Sony is going to have a showcase in early June, which I would assume that, we're going to see The Last of Us remake there if that happens.
Right.
Along with, I'm sure we'll get looks at other things like maybe Spider-Man 2, even though it's not coming till next year. I'm sure they'll show something.
Is 2023 the release window that they have for Spider-Man 2 right now?
Yes. Yep.
So I think we'll definitely see some gameplay.
Yeah.
Or at least an in-game story beat or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we'll get an answer one way or another whether or not God of War is coming out, right? Because all signs are pointing to no, that it's not coming out this year, but you have Cory Barlog and the animation lead on Twitter in response to fans saying, no, the game's coming out this year. It'll be interesting to get a final word on that. Is it coming out this year? Is it not? I'm excited to see what I would love for Sony to have a showcase. I would love for them to do it this early, and not wait super long into the summer because they're one of when it comes to Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, you really don't know what they have for past 2023. We know they're working on Wolverine, and we are assuming that they are working on factions. I don't think they've ever come out and said that is exactly what it is, but I mean, that clearly is what it is. But aside from those two things, I mean, 2024 and beyond, we have no idea. So I would love to get a bunch of concept trailers and just maybe we see what Cory Barlog's, he's working on, away from God of War, his new IP and stuff like that. So I would be very excited to see what Sony has got cooking.
Absolutely. Lots to show. All right, Gage. PXN news of the week. We've got a couple items here. Insomniac Games and Sony are in a little bit of a back and forth here behind the scenes. So essentially, I'll break this down for you from the Washington Post article here. So last week, PlayStation President Jim Ryan sent employees an email asking them to respect differences of opinion around abortion rights in light of the leaked Supreme Court opinion surrounding Roe versus Wade, stressing that we owe it to each other and to PlayStation's millions of users to respect differences of opinion among everyone in our internal and external communities. Employees were not pleased with the lighthearted response, according to a Bloomberg report about the email. Of course, I think that was Jason Schreier. Following that gaffe, Insomniac, the Sony subsidiary, of course, had plans to donate $50,000 to the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project, according to an internal email sent May 13th from Insomniac CEO Ted Price. However, Sony will match the donation along with donations from individual Insomniac employees if they make them via the company's PlayStation Cares program. In addition, Sony now plans to formulate an initiative to provide financial assistance to employees who might have to travel to different states to receive reproductive care. Insomniac will aid in formulating that policy. Okay, where's the however? Neither company plans to tweet about their donation. Okay, here's the however. So, however, neither company plans to tweet about their donations, and Insomniac employees have been forbidden from explicitly mentioning Insomniac or Sony should they decide to retweet any announcements the WRRAP might make, according to the email. So essentially, Sony doesn't want a public stance on this issue, and their employees are wanting to make a public stance on this. And it's also interesting. I'm going to tie this with a couple of other stories too, Gage, and then we can talk about it. But it's interesting because Bungie, who was just recently announced to be eventually acquired by PlayStation, was doing the complete opposite, and they were posting very publicly about being against abortion. And I am realizing I linked the wrong post here for the wrong thing. But anyways, yes, they were tweeting out the exact opposite, and that acquisition doesn't go through until early 2023, which is obviously indicative of them not being acquired yet. But like, what makes me question that is like, when they are acquired, are they going to have, a trump card essentially over Bungie to say, hey, you can't do this anymore? Like, I hate to see that, because like the company should be representing their employees. Like, if an employee or if the majority of employees are saying something, like, the company should represent those views. The company shouldn't represent like, oh no, my hands are clean, I don't want to make any statement on this. I'm sorry, I forgot one more story to this as well, and then we can. Certain Affinity also published a post today. Max Hoberman, who is the head of Certain Affinity, of course, many people know him from being one of the design leads, one of the main guys for Halo 2's development, and he went to create Certain Affinity right after Halo 2 finished development. And he's always had great stuff for his employees. But he announced today that as a demonstration of our company values, I am making this commitment to you. If the state or province that you live in restricts access to what a majority of medical experts consider essential care, and this makes remaining there unattainable for you and your family, we will cover the pre-approved, documented, reasonable out-of-pocket costs of your relocation to another safer state or province that we operate in. So that's a really incredible. A really great response for this for Certain Affinity employees. But yeah, again, like, going back to the Sony thing, it's just like, you have to represent your company as what your employees want to be. I feel like is the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a very complicated situation for sure. I almost wonder if they should instead set a precedent of kind of what Xbox does with Bethesda, where I wonder if Sony and these other major conglomerates that own a lot of studios that have a lot of different cultures and are all over the world, if they should set a precedent of saying, like, the views expressed by this studio do not reflect Sony, because that way Sony can do their bullshit and pretend that they don't have an opinion on it, but there isn't any sort of reason to be shutting down and forbidding, because you know what I mean? Like, if everybody at Insomniac is kind of in agreement on this, then it's almost like, in a sense, the company that you really work for, the development studio that you interact with on the day-to-day, that you're all in agreement over something, but this sort of higher entity that you don't really interact with, if you're the average developer, you're not going to meet with Jim Ryan every day. Like, they're sort of just telling you, hey, no, we own you now. You have to toe the line, which is unfortunate. I mean, obviously this issue is very complicated. I think that it's so weird to me that this is even happening, because it seems like the United States is very. I'm speaking as a Canadian, but the United States, if I remember correctly, the First Amendment has to do with separation of church and state, in that you can't make laws based off of religion to affect everyone who may or may not follow that religion. So
right.
The whole idea of abortion being overturned in Roe v. Wade is very interesting, because it's like, pro-choice doesn't necessarily mean pro-abortion. It means that you respect somebody's right to choose. And I saw this great video. It's from the Young Turks, who I normally don't watch. I'm normally not a fan of them, but the female host, I'm forgetting her name, unfortunately, but she went on this amazing rant where she just started freaking out. She was saying, like, you are allowed to practice your religion. You are allowed to. I will fight for your right to do that. But you don't get to govern someone who doesn't believe in that religion based on the rules of your religion, which is a big part of Roe v. Wade. It's not the only part. There are other people who are non-religious who are against abortion, so that is a thing. But that is the biggest sort of argument there. So it is crazy to me to see PlayStation's trying to sit on the fence when it's not even really like a, you can be pro-choice and not pro-abortion. Like, it's very strange to me that they're trying to take this stance that's hard to defend. I mean,
right.
It's so hard to defend that Jim Ryan in his email started talking about fucking cats and dogs, because he knows it's really hard to, he said his little, please be nice to everyone, but also, how about cats? It's like, it's a really hard hill to die on to say that you don't believe that medical professionals who, for the majority, agree that this should be an option. And there's a multitude of reasons, not just the most extremes of why someone might want this procedure. It's a very hard hill to die on. So it's very strange that they are with certain of their teams
Yes.
trying to draw these lines. It's very strange to me.
Agreed. And like you put it very well there, because I've not really spoken too in depth about my views on that on this podcast, but like
Right.
what you described is pretty much the way I would think of it, because like I respect the women's decision to choose, but I'm not necessarily pro-abortion, like what you're saying. But again, it comes down to the woman and her decision on, what situation she is in. So like, there's absolutely many circumstances where abortion is something that should be considered because of the circumstances. Whether we don't have to get into that there.
For sure.
I don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody goes to the extreme ones of like, oh, well, that's the one exception. But it's like, no, there's a lot.
Right.
There's, is this person financially stable? Is this person emotionally, mentally mature? Like, what was, there are other steps in between that extreme one
right.
and a consensual interaction. There's a lot of gray areas in between those two that could lead to that, where it's like, was this person aware of certain things that maybe transpire? Like, yeah, there's so many. The fact that there can be so many exemptions to the rule is when I immediately go, okay, well then the rule's flawed. So this idea of no, we're going to outlaw this, you can't do this anymore. As soon as there's more than like one or two exceptions, and there's all these different gray areas of why somebody might need this procedure, then my mind immediately goes to, well then this should be available. Right? This shouldn't be a thing. It's very simple. It's kind of like the free speech thing, where it's like, I am a big supporter of free speech, and it only has a couple of exemptions. You can't scream fire in a crowded movie theater, right. And you can't call for violence.
Yeah.
And that is it. Those are the only exemptions. And I'm like, cool, so that's a good rule, because that makes sense. You don't have a million different caveats of okay here, okay there. So when people say that, anti-abortion, and then you bring up, well, what about A, B, C, D, F, G, and then it's like, well, I think that And I do, and it's unfortunate, because I do kind of agree with Jim Ryan, where it's like everybody should be allowed to have different opinions. Like, I understand how somebody could be feeling this way, but again, you can be anti-abortion, and you can try and convince people to not do that while still, respecting that people who don't believe in what you believe in should have options that, are outside of your religion or your beliefs or whatever.
That's fair. So I'm going to include this here because I meant to put this in our top story on Quick Bites, and I completely butchered this. But Bungie also put a little note out about the people that were affected by the tragedy in Buffalo, New York. They tweeted, "Our hearts go out to those impacted by this past weekend's tragedy in Buffalo, New York. Our Be Heard pin is available on the Bungie store, and all profits are donated to the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a catalyst for racial justice in the South and beyond," which is really, really cool. The pin also comes with an emblem so players can show their support in Destiny 2. And it's a Black Lives Matter emblem and nameplate. So Bungie has always been very outspoken on all these issues, so it's great to see them on the forefront of that.
Absolutely.
I butchered that. I put it in the wrong spot.
No, reward. I mean, always reward consistency, right? Bungie's been very consistent. I mean, even as a kid playing Halo 1 and 2 and seeing those messages that pop up when you beat the game, it's like they've always. It doesn't really. It's funny. Rashan made a great tweet, unfortunately, where you have all these people just being assholes on Twitter, but it's like they've been consistent. They have always had this sort of philosophy and sort of mission statement, whatever you want to call it, of putting people first. I don't think this is an act at all. I commend Bungie for sticking to their guns and remaining consistent with their views and how they treat their employees and the sort of ideas that they want to reward and spread and the causes that they want to support. It's good. It's all good stuff.
Absolutely. Gage, our last story. Finally, we've made it here. I apologize. We've had a lot to talk about today. Some PlayStation Plus games have officially been revealed for the new service, Gage, and there is a quite a good list. I'm pretty happy with this list so far. And this is just a partial list, of course, but for the PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium plans, they have a giant list of games, many first-party and third-party games. So a lot of the older games on here, like Alien Nation, Bloodborne, Concrete Genie, Days Gone, I won't go through all of them, but Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales are both on here as well. Basically, a ton of the first-party games are on here, as well as third-party games like Guardians of the Galaxy, which of course is in Game Pass as well. So they're kind of sharing in that regard. Batman Arkham Knight, Control, Resident Evil. There's a lot of really good stuff in here that I commend Sony for. It looks like a really solid start to their service. And they also announced that Ubisoft Plus Classics will launch with extra and premium tiers, which Ubisoft Plus Classics is a collection of their classic games, so to speak, I guess. Games that have already released, including Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is their most recent Assassin's Creed game, which is great. So this will launch with 27 titles and will grow to 50 by the end of 2022. So that's a really good get right there. As well as they have revealed their classic games. PlayStation has announced their classic games catalog for PlayStation Plus. And personally, I think this is the weakest part of it. I think the classic games are not so high. High mark here. Yeah. We got Ape Escape. We got Siphon Filter, but a lot of the other stuff is pretty much filler in my eyes.
Right.
So yeah, but overall, pretty satisfying start here for the new service.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out and what the analytics are and how many people sign up for this, and if the average PlayStation sort of consumer thinks that these extra tiers are worth it. It'll be very curious to see. I mean, I don't have much to say because I don't have a PlayStation currently. I don't think I would. I don't think I would sign up for this just because there's. I don't know. It's. A lot of people are still waiting to see too how the streaming works, how it feels, what games are able to be streamed and which games are able to be downloaded, because that's still a little fuzzy as well. So I'm very curious to see what this is. I hope it works out because they've got a lot of great games that are kind of stuck in the past because of their lack of hardware based backwards compatibility. So like everybody on the show, we're all very pro game preservation. So my only concern with this is this enough? Will this sort of satiate what people want from these older games, or is this going to be like PlayStation Now, where it hardly works and there's a lot of input lag and it's just a nightmare to use? So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, absolutely.
Gage, we're moving into our announcements here for PXN's best open world game of all time.
Yes, we are.
Of course, last week, Ro and Christian announced their 4 picks. Those polls have ended, and Christian's winner, of course, was Elden Ring. He was sweating it out, though, because Batman was pretty close there in the beginning. Even at the end, really, it was pretty close. And Roshan's Marvel's Spider-Man won his list there. So now, Gage, we're going to announce ours right now, and we're going to just go back and forth like Christian and Ro did on our picks here. And our individual polls will go up starting tomorrow, so make sure you come back tomorrow. I'm going to try and have them posted at noon Eastern time. And it will go for 2 days. So Gage, yours is going to start tomorrow, go for 2 days, and then mine will start on Saturday and go for 2 days, which will end Monday. And then Monday, that's an important date because Monday is when the final poll starts, and that will go for 2 days, which will run to the podcast episode, and it will end in the middle of the podcast episode next week, which we'll be finding the live results for PXN's best open world game.
Very exciting.
Very cool. Gage, what's your first game on your list for best open world game?
Well, it's interesting. My first and your first, we're kind of going head to head here.
Yeah.
So my first pick for best open world game. So all of my picks, I tried to. I'm guessing we all did. I mean, looking at the everybody's picks here, it's clear that we all had the same idea. But it's like, what game really took that genre and really used it to its fullest extent? And for me, my first pick is Fallout New Vegas. Um, I love the Fallout series. I love the previous game. For me, Fallout New Vegas, what it did so well with the open world genre is that it sort of took some of the restrictions in previous games and loosened them so that you really could kind of craft your character with a lot more freedom than many games of many different franchises will let you do. So I absolutely adore Fallout New Vegas. It has an iconic map. You've got the Hoover Dam. You've got the house and the strip, and it's a fantastic game. I got lost in it when I first played it. It was the first Fallout that I played, and I cannot. I will never forget how hooked I got in this game, and how, especially living in the time of, I've got a very powerful PC, and we both have Xbox Series X's. So living in the time of solid state drives, I remember back when I was playing Fallout New Vegas, and you would enter a room, and it's same for your pick. No spoilers, but you go into a house and you wait 45 seconds, and then you go in there. You just have to talk to somebody. Then you go back out. You're waiting like a minute, and it's just like, it didn't affect me at all. I was that hooked into this game that I was sitting there watching that little thing spin and just waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And you got so many different characters and side quests, and I think it's a fantastic game, and it's one of the games that really takes the open world to its fullest potential.
Yeah, really great. Obsidian is a masterclass. Love it.
They did a fantastic job.
So on the back of that, of course, mine is very similar. Fallout 3 is on mine. And yeah, Fallout 3, just such an incredible game, man. The world is so freaking amazing. Like, the fact that they took like this top-down, weird, like isometric-esque RPG and turned it into a first/third-person post-apocalyptic, just wasteland, open world wasteland was just so cool. And like, there's so many cool areas that you could go to, like Megaton. What a cool fucking idea for a city surrounded by the bomb and
Rivet
making
City.
the decisions.
Rivet City was fantastic.
Rivet City, yes. And like all the little, even like the little stories you would find in Fallout 3, you'd just be like, what the hell is going on? This is so cool. Like you have the cannibals, and you have the people that are the kids that are like,
I was going to say Camp
colony.
Little Light. That was Fallout 3, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
That was an excellent little side
cool
story to find.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just like those little touches were just so cool. And like, the biggest thing for me in Fallout, like, the music is so fucking perfect. It fits the world perfectly to a T. And like, one of my most fond memories was I was playing in my room one day, and my grandparents were over, actually having dinner, and like, it was kind of a tradition for us to go out to church together, and we would go back out to dinner, or bring dinner back to our house and do that. So I was playing Fallout 3 actually in my bedroom. And my grandpa came in, and he's like, What are you listening to? You're like listening to my kind of music. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, it's just so cool. And I just thought it was cool that we could like kind of share that moment over a video game. So yeah, very cool. Great game.
Great pick. Yeah. Moving on to my second pick, it is the one and only Grand Theft Auto 5. We've all made comments that we're sick of it, and it's overstayed its welcome. And I mean, GTA Online, it still makes a ton of money, and it still sells. But when I say GTA 5, I'm talking about the base game that launched, and that we got to play, and that we got to experience. And I mean, I could make an argument for GTA Online and how that sandbox has just gotten off the walls. But really, when I say GTA 5, I'm just talking about the story mode, the campaign, and that sandbox. It's incredible. I mean, when the fact that it launched on the 360 and the PS3 as well is another thing to just take into account. But I think we've talked about this in the podcast before, but Grand Theft Auto, it does flying better than most flying games. It does driving, really competently and better than most open world games. And the shooting was fantastic. And it just, it really, it was really just a sandbox of what Rockstar is capable of. And I remember the IGN review at the time. It gave it, a 10 out of 10. It might have been somebody like Greg Miller or Colin Moriarty or something like that. I can't remember, but there was an excellent little sort of end to that article, to that review, which this is September 2013. This is just months before the PS4 and the Xbox One, and that little sign off for that review of GTA 5 was the new generation starts when Rockstar says it starts. And I thought that was such a beautiful way to put it, because that game was so far ahead of anything else, and it was incredible. Yeah, the variety of locales and vehicles to use and how all of them function. It's, again, similar to all of our picks. It takes that open world format and it puts it to the absolute most. So just an incredible game to fool around in, and to just an absolute sandbox. And we're all eagerly awaiting GTA 6 for the same reason, because Rockstar really does sort of decide when the next generation of gaming starts.
I echo all those sentiments. Great game. My second one, Gage, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Such an underappreciated game, I feel like. Yes. Just looking back, obviously it got, some acclaim, but the biggest thing in that game, the Nemesis system, such a unique feature to have these unique bosses that know and remember you from previous encounters, and they'll remember if you spared them and they ran away or got away, and then they come back and they're like, I'm back, and do you remember me when this happened? And it's just so cool, that concept of a constant retaining knowledge in the game of what you've done with this character in the past. And also it combined many mechanics from other games like Assassin's Creed's climbing with kind of a sort of Batman esque combat system, sort of. Right. And actually the Assassin's Creed part's kind of funny, because there was rumors out there that the code was kind of stolen from Assassin's Creed, but such a good game and a great licensed game, which I feel like isn't necessarily it's kind of few and far between nowadays. So
I will say that you're talking about the Nemesis system and how incredible that was. Also something that could only happen in a nonlinear game, right? You couldn't have, if you beat the first boss and then just continue on to the next one, you couldn't have a Nemesis system, right? So that's why I said to you when we were looking at this before the show that is an excellent pick, because one of its standout system has to be unique to a nonlinear open world game. That's the only place you could use that. So excellent pick. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor is a game that I slept on, and actually, friend of the show, Glenn, is the person who sort of sat me down. It's like, you're going to watch me play this, and then you're going to try it. And then I played it, and I was like, yeah, this is a really good game. This is really good.
Now, I will say, as a kind of a honorable mention, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, I was debating between that and this, so I will just throw that out there. That was one of my honorable mentions. So,
right.
Very good game as well.
Okay, moving on to my third pick. It was a toss-up between which one to go with, but I'm going with another Rockstar game, what I believe to be still to this day their best game, which is the original Red Dead Redemption. Comparing it to the second one, it's tough when you're trying to decide which one to go with, but I went with this one because I felt that Red Dead Redemption 1, it had so much... It felt like it had more environmental sort of impact. And when I think of Red Dead 2, I think of specifically the story beats. But when I think of Red Dead 1, a lot of people think of crossing over to Mexico for the first time, and what a surreal experience that was, and the music hitting, and you're just holding you're just sort of riding, but it's still this incredible moment because that world was so well designed and so well realized. And I mean, obviously, I've spoken at this at length, but John Marston is my favorite fictional character of all time. So obviously spending time with him in an open world and hearing him react to things was amazing to me. But yeah, it's just seeing Blackwater and tall trees and all these locales that were just incredible. And Undead Nightmare, the DLC that launched with it, is
Yes.
I think Rockstar's best DLC they've ever done. It is absolutely insane that they did not do something similar for Red Dead 2, especially with like their survival light and looting mechanics that they added to it. It baffles me that they did not make an Undead Nightmare 2. I feel like that would have been a home run just sitting on the T-ball, just waiting to be hit. But yeah, Red Dead 1 is it's incredible to me. I'll never forget this game. It's in my top 3. I love it. And yeah, I'll never forget crossing over into Mexico and that entire 4 or 5 minute sort of trek that you do, and this beautiful song just plays in the background. It's a very special game, and I think it's one of the best. I think it is their best.
Absolutely. Gage, moving to my third one, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Of course, Assassin's Creed always was an open world game, but like Black Flag, I really feel like they just opened up the gambit and were just like, let's just go crazy with it, and it's so good. The ship combat, I feel like, was way ahead of its time. It was such a freaking amazing experience to get
It felt great too to sail the ship. Like, it felt good.
Oh yeah. Yes, it felt so good. And like all the islands, I just remember, were so like beautiful. Like the colors were like popping between the water and the palm trees and all of that. Like such a good aesthetic. Edward Kenway, such a freaking amazing character. I loved his character. And that's coming from someone who hated Assassin's Creed 3's protagonist, which was Connor Kenway. I apologize. I did not like Connor at all. And when Edward was introduced in the sequel, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And then I just got to know it, and I was like, yes, this is perfect. I love it so much. The story was great. And yeah, it's like the pinnacle of Assassin's Creed for me. Like, I feel like after that, they kind of started to go on a slide a little bit, but
right.
Yeah, that game,
Identity Crisis almost after that one.
Yeah, that game, so good.
I'll say too, another great pick, because this is almost a double open world where you're sailing your ship in an open sea, but then every time you land on an island, that is also an open world for you to explore, right? So
yeah,
in terms of the best open world game, that's almost like a double whammy. So that's an excellent pick.
And not too big also. Like Odyssey is a really good game, but like it's too big. It's fucking gigantic. It's absurd. Yeah.
And that's a problem with Ubisoft going forward. And I don't know if you guys talked about this on one of the previous episodes where I was off, but they patented some AI technology that's going to make their worlds even bigger. And I'm like, nobody wants this. We want more detailed worlds. Right. There is no reason for an open world game to be bigger than Assassin's Creed Odyssey. That game is absolutely massive. Yes. So just keep that the same size, and then just add more things in it and make it more detailed. Like, yeah, Black Flag was great for that, because it's similar to Marvel Spider-Man. I never felt the need to fast travel. Everything was, it felt like it was a decent distance away. And like we said, sailing felt good, and crashing against the waves. Like it was great. Yeah, absolutely. My final pick is going back into, actually everything except for GTA is like 2009 era, 2010 era.
I cannot believe it.
Far Cry 2, man. I love this game. It was the first Far Cry game that I played. And similar to everything that we've talked about, like using certain gameplay mechanics to enhance that open world format. I mean, I love that when you wanted to look at the map, your character actually brought up a physical map and it didn't pause the game around you. You had to kind of like, if you were driving, he'd bring up his map and you'd sort of have to look down at the map while you're still driving. It was very, very neat. And like you had your diamond caches that you'd use your little pager to find, and you get to the end of the map and then sort of you got to pull up another map, and now you have to sort of figure out your bearings. And it was just, it made again exploring that open world fun. It made it enjoyable just to get from point A to point B, which I think is an important characteristic of all of our picks, right? Like, talk about Marvel Spider-Man, we talk about Assassin's Creed. Like, a really good open world game it makes it so that you don't want to hit that fast travel button. You actually want to traverse.
I am curious. Did you like the mechanic of your vehicle breaking down and having to repair it like all the time?
I didn't mind the vehicle. I thought you were going to bring up the malaria bullshit.
Oh,
And
that too. Yeah.
Nobody likes that. Nobody
Yeah.
likes that, which is why they're like, what if we had a protagonist who was terminally ill and it
Yeah.
caused you nothing but sorrow? It's like, well, that might be really good in like a story-driven Telltale type game, but
Yeah.
in an action, first-person shooter, no, I don't like coughing and wheezing every 30 seconds and having to make sure I got my medication on my. Yeah, I didn't mind. I didn't mind the vehicle stuff, but like I kind of have an affinity for this sort of more sandboxy simulation. Like I play games like Arma, which a lot of people would play and be like, this is the most boring thing ever. So I could understand how your vehicle's breaking down, and if you hit things too much, you gotta pop the hood and repair it. I could see how that would get boring, but for me, that just added to that sort of ambiance of trekking through the African wilderness. And yeah. I think Far Cry 2 is fantastic in terms of its.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make an argument for Far Cry 3 as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
great game, but there's just something about pulling up the map and having to repair your vehicles and all this stuff, and really having to think about, can I get from point A to point B? That makes Far Cry 2 kind of stand out as a pick.
Yeah, the Africa setting was really cool in Far Cry 2.
Beautiful, yeah. The fire spreading mechanics, obviously, that was really cool for its time.
Yeah. Glenn, I missed your comment. I apologize. He said, didn't Shadow of Mordor win a Game of the Year or something? I don't think they won Game of the Year, but they did have like a Game of the Year edition. Sometimes developers do that. Like they release a Game of the Year edition that includes all DLC, but I don't think it actually won a Game of the Year. But it was still a great game though.
Well, I see what you're saying too. Like it was critically reviewed really well, but it did not get a lot of buzz, right? It definitely. Right. I see what you mean when you say it's underrated. Like it might have got nominated for awards and it might have gotten done really well critically, but you didn't hear anyone talking about it outside of that, right? Even though it was a well-made game.
Right. Yep. My final one, Gage, is probably one of the bigger ones. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Such a freaking banger of a freaking open world. It is so good. Obviously, like, here's the crazy part. I'm not as much as I talk about Breath of the Wild as being like such a freaking monumental game for me, I'm not even a big Zelda fan. Like I've completed Ocarina of Time. I've dabbled in Majora's Mask, and I've completed Breath of the Wild. That's my extent of my Legend of Zelda knowledge. So, but yes, like when I got my Switch, I was so excited to just constantly be in this world. And I played it all in handheld mode. Over 100 hours I put into this game. Like the shrines were just so cool to me. Like every shrine you went to felt very different. Like there was really cool puzzles you could do in each shrine, or some of them were puzzles, but some of them were combat ones, which I thought was really cool. But they were all unique in that aspect. And in fact, I actually enjoyed the puzzle ones even more because I was like, I just like finding out like how to get through these really cool Zelda puzzles. And yeah, the open world is absolutely beautiful and breathtaking, and the beasts were really cool to like see on the map, like moving around. And the story was good, and yeah, all the cities that you got to travel around to was really cool. I really liked the game. It was really amazing and well done, and yeah, I'm excited for the sequel when it inevitably comes out, hopefully next year.
Yeah. I didn't play this one. I can't speak to it, but from everything I've seen online, and I have seen many gameplay videos, it takes that open world format and it takes it very seriously. And the environmental puzzles that I've seen, and even just crafting campfires and how everything is sort of very tactile and textual. I would not be surprised if this overwhelmingly wins your poll. It's a great pick.
Yeah. All right, moving into what you got for me, Gage. I'm going to try to go through mine quick because we are running very long. I apologize.
Oh, my God.
Yes. So we are back, Gage. I got my account back for freaking Xbox after 16 days. They still couldn't tell me why my account was locked out, but I'm back in it, and I'm happy. And
quick shout out to Juan.
Yes.
who came in clutch.
Juan from Microsoft support. And also, quick shout out, Gage. I alluded to this last week, and I haven't confirmed this, but I'm 99.9% sure that my email that I sent to Phil Spencer is the reason why I have my account back, because I'm not going to explain the whole thing because it's going to take too long, and we're already long as it is. But essentially, Phil Spencer, I sent an email to him. He got me to Juan, and Juan fixed my account. So, yeah, very appreciative.
Shout out to Daddy Phil.
Yes, thank you, Phil. Love you. And also, last Friday, I released my hype video for the summer of games. It used to be E3 hype video, but now summer hype video. Very cool. I love doing those every year. So check that out on my personal channel. XDTM3000X is the channel name, or you can just search my name, Daniel Prindle. Yeah, I created that when I was a little kid.
Awful.
Yeah, I have to get to 100 subscribers to change it again, though, because back in the day you could change it, whenever, but now you need 100 subscribers. Anyways, also my Xbox and Bethesda predictions are coming this Friday on my personal channel, which I alluded to a little bit before with the Gears Marcus Phoenix collection. That might be in my predictions. So, yeah, check that out on Friday. But Gage, what you got for me?
I've been playing a little bit of everything, but the one that stands out to me is I had a bunch of friends over last weekend, and we got into Overcooked. We threw that on, and my God, if you have 4 people on a couch, and it is so much fun. It's like a really well thought out Mario Party mini game, but there's enough to it that it absolutely can make its own game, and just good fun. Everybody's screaming at each other. You got somebody chopping vegetables, and the other person's running plates back and forth, and the other person's grabbing the ingredients, and somebody's watching the pot, making sure that it doesn't boil over. It's fun. It's chaotic. It's just a really good time. I highly recommend that if you do try this out, you bring a couple friends over, and that's probably where you'll have the most fun with it. And yeah, just a really good time. Again, shout out to Game Pass for allowing people to explore these games that they otherwise might not have paid money for. So yeah, Overcooked is great. I'm about to jump into Overcooked too, and yeah, highly recommend. Very fun party style game.
Yeah, Overcooked is great. Really cool. Topic of the show, Gage. Here we go. Starfield and Redfall have officially been delayed to 2023. Bethesda posts on Twitter, "We've made the decision to delay the launches of Redfall and Starfield to the first half of 2023. The teams at Arcane Austin for Redfall and Bethesda Game Studios for Starfield have incredible ambitions for their games, and we want to ensure that you receive the best, most polished versions of them. We want to thank everyone for the excitement for Redfall and Starfield. That energy is a huge part of what inspires all of us every day and drives our own excitement for what we are creating. We can't wait to share our first deep dive into the gameplay for both Redfall and Starfield soon, hopefully at the Xbox event next month." So, with that being said, there's been a lot of discussion online. First off, I just want to go here. There's been a lot of discussion online. Like, some people I'm seeing say, like, Phil Spencer sucks, he's the worst, like all this stuff. First off, no, he doesn't. Fuck you, because he got me back into my fucking account. But second off, like, Phil loves games. Like, there's nobody that I can picture at the top of a CEO chart that loves games. Like, Phil fucking loves games. You can see him on his Xbox account every day, like playing a different game. Like, the dude loves games. What now? Does he do everything correctly all the time? No. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. However, we can talk about like what could be improved. So like, how do we think like this first party situation could be improved, Gage? Like, there's been a lot of delays and issues lately with Microsoft's first party, and obviously Bethesda is part of that. Like, what do we think like are some ways that this can improve going forward for him?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's trying to throw Phil Spencer under the bus is an idiot, because he's single-handedly saved the Xbox brand. I mean, that's not hyperbole. That's not me giving him too much credit. I mean, he did that. I mean, Xbox was in a horrible spot in the mid-aughts in 2013, 2014, 2015. Now it's become what it is today with Game Pass and leading the industry in certain ways. So no, Phil Spencer is absolutely the right man for the job, but I think there is an issue with how many studios they have and and their hierarchy. There absolutely is an issue here. Not Halo Infinite, as we've discussed, absolutely needed to be delayed, and it probably needed to be delayed more than it was. But there is absolutely something to say for having your flagship franchise not launch with your new console, right? Like that is a huge issue, and there have been years where we've gotten an incredible amount of awesome content from Xbox, and then there are years where there's absolutely nothing, and it just doesn't seem like Sony has that problem. It seems like for all of their faults, and I don't think their games are one of them. I think, as I've said many times, I think they make better games than Xbox in terms of a first party capacity. But they always had them spaced out in a way that you're getting something every 6 months that you're looking for, right? Whether it's Ratchet or Spider Man or God of War remake or The Last of Us or Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, that's the only time I can think of where they maybe had games too crowded. But even then, you'd rather have too many games coming out for your system than not enough, right? So Xbox does have a history of having these really off years where they just can't seem to get into a rhythm, and maybe it has to do with when they're acquiring studios. If they already have things in the pipeline, you can't really tell them to stop working on something for 6 months just to make sure that it comes out in an off time, right? But I do wonder if maybe they need to, and maybe this is what the Gears of War collection could be, is that maybe they need to have games ready and sit on them and hold them maybe until, especially if they're a remake or a remaster, just sit on them and try and create this flow where you're getting something, you're getting at least one or two really great Xbox exclusives a year, and you're, I mean, I know he's mentioned that he wants to do more than that. I know that there's an Xbox Wire last year that mentioned that they want to have one big exclusive every quarter, but it's going to take a lot of management to get to that. And I think that, I don't know if it has to do with rearranging a hierarchy, or maybe even they have so many studios now, or maybe just having one person being the head of Xbox Studios isn't enough. Maybe they need to have multiple. Right? So there is something to be improved here. I don't know exactly what it is. We all know the philosophy that needs to be improved, which is just their timeline and their timing. But how do you do that? I mean, I have no idea.
I think you have some really great points though, Gage. Like, I think that's a really great idea about remasters and remakes. Like, nobody's clamoring for a remaster necessarily, or would be upset to not see it come out sooner. So like, maybe you do hold on to that for when you have like a dead time of the year for you. Like, that's a really good point and really good idea. Just don't announce it and just sit on it. You can announce it and then come out like 3 or 4 months later. Like, that wouldn't be a big deal for a remaster. So that's a really good idea. And I feel like their problem with their first party studios right now is a lot of the acquisitions that they made at the same time were all at a time where they were just releasing a game or they were about to release a game. So like, you get in the situation where they purchased Obsidian, but they already were committed to Private Division to release the Outer Worlds. So they still released the Outer Worlds. That game came out. It didn't necessarily get attributed to Xbox Game Studios because it was already part of another thing. But now this developer doesn't have anything ready for, probably 3 years or so because, they just put that out. And they're in similar situations with other studios as well because, you have studios like Playground has actually done a phenomenal job. Playground has released probably the most games out of all those studios that they have acquired. But like Ninja Theory, they acquired shortly after Hellblade came out. That's another example. There's many examples you can point to from their acquisitions. Bethesda, they purchased Bethesda, which is all-encompassing Bethesda. So many of the decisions of release timing and all of that were probably already made before they acquired them last year. So I think time will definitely help with that. As time goes on, we're going to get more games from these studios, inevitably finishing them. But but I guess I don't know if this is my last question or if you have any other thoughts, but Do you think, like, is it as simple as just giving the developers more time, or are there deeper issues? Like, I know we've talked about other issues before. Like, one of my issues is, contract work. Like, contractors don't get the same appreciation, so therefore they don't care to work as hard and don't have as much motivation to make the product as good as it can be because they're temporary employees essentially. So, like, I feel like Microsoft almost emphasizes contract work too much in their first party developers. And I get that you probably have to have some of that because, the overhead on game development is probably insane. But, like, you also have to incentivize people to want to work at these studios that are supposed to be world-renowned studios, like PlayStation has, or many other, Nintendo or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, do you think? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, obviously, like we've all said, like a delayed game is never worse than a game that's not delayed, right? So, I mean, giving devs time is absolutely part of it. I think that you bring up a really good point with when they acquired studios. I mean, um, we haven't seen Bethesda, what Bethesda looks like and what they do under Xbox's rule, because, like you said, a lot of these games that have come out have been well in development, right? So it's a lot of Xbox acquiring these guys and saying, "Hey, what are you working on? This? Okay, cool. When do you think it'll be done?" Then, okay, all right, and then they just release it when it's done. But now that uh, for every game that these studios wrap, now they are starting a project under the Xbox banner. So it sucks because of, I mean, we want to see results immediately, but with how these games work with 3, 4, 5 year development cycles, I mean, we're really not going to see um, how Bethesda operates under Xbox until the coming years, right? So I agree with what you said. Like, I think that it's important to have a good culture, a good development culture, and obviously relying heavily on contract work is the opposite. Because
Yeah,
you can have these people who come in and have maybe get attached to the project and have really good ideas, but you ship them off, and then you have somebody else come in. And like you've mentioned plenty of times, you maybe have somebody who gets into a workflow and knows what they're doing, and then somebody comes in and now they've never worked with this
exactly.
engine before, and they have to spend time relearning as well as trying to fit with the team and get into that mindset. So I think that is a huge issue. Obviously, we've talked about it with 343 and particularly them because they are such a flagship studio and they rely heavily on contract work. So I do wonder if this is a symptom of Microsoft and Xbox division being so huge that it's kind of like
Hmm.
they maybe are losing control of the finer operations, right? Obviously, you don't want to be micromanaged, but if Phil Spencer is kind of or sorry, the head of Xbox, I keep getting his name, Matt Booty,
Matt Booty, yeah.
um, it's getting to a point where, like I said, maybe there needs to be another man to help him or another person or change up the hierarchy because it's like, how can you manage all of these studios? Right,
Right.
you've got Microsoft has acquired so many, and they're looking to acquire more. I mean, we're halfway through the Activision acquisition, right? So
True.
maybe it
And
gets to the point where 343 says, "Shit, we need help now. We're just gonna contract," and Matt Booty just replies to an email, says, "Yeah, do what you need to do," and it's like, well,
hmm,
you guys need to sit down and really sort of reevaluate
yeah,
and create a culture. You have a studio that like Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog, like we always compare them because that's Sony's flagship studios. Like there is a culture at Naughty Dog. The games they make are very similar, not in a negative way, but in their tone and in their how every game pushes the bar. Like there is a culture at Naughty Dog where it's like we are here to make the best games that we can, and that's hard when you have a majority, not a majority, but like a large portion of your workforce. Somebody who's coming in temporary and maybe does want to stay, but maybe doesn't have the opportunity. And yeah, I think that in this case, more management is required, or at least a sort of reshuffling and reinvigoration in some sense of all these studios and what they can do and what they should be working on and how to get there.
and to their credit, they have done that a little bit because, of course, Pete Hines is still heading up Bethesda. So
Right.
essentially, everyone at Bethesda still reports to Pete Hines. So to their credit, they have done a little bit in that regard specifically for the Bethesda acquisition. But you're right, it's a lot to manage. There's a ton
I
of studios.
I almost wonder if they need another Pete Hines. Like if it's almost like, because you're absolutely right, and that's what they did with Bethesda was perfect, and it's what Bungie plans on, or it's what PlayStation plans on doing with Bungie, which I think is the right call. Where it's like we're acquiring a studio that's so big or a publisher that's so big, we're gonna let them keep doing their thing. But the problem is that they've acquired so many one-off studios that they don't realize that like they've almost made the Xbox Game Studios publishing division twice as big as it was before. So it's almost like maybe you need to lump like your initiative, your 343, and your coalition into a almost like a sub publisher or its own division, and have somebody look after that.
Right.
And then you have your Obsidians and your Ninja Theories and all those teams, your Rares in their own other division, right? And you have somebody who's managing them. To me, that's kind of like, it seems like that's what they need, because they have Pete Hines for Bethesda, but then they have like 24 other studios that don't fit into any one publisher, that Matt Booty is responsible for all of them theoretically, right? So I almost wonder, and I just thought of that now with you saying that about Pete Hines, I wonder if maybe that's something that they should pursue, is splitting up some of these development studios that have similar cultures or similar weight to them to their own divisions within Xbox that have somebody that they can report to, who then Matt Booty, instead of Matt Booty talking to 24 different studio heads, he talks to the 1 or 3 division heads that then, you know what I mean, almost creating more of a pyramid structure.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a lot of good suggestions, and it'll be interesting.
Yeah, Phil, we know you're listening, so take note, Phil.
Yeah, I'll send you another email, Phil, so you say, hey, watch the podcast. We talked about you. We defended your honor, Phil.
Defended your honor, Phil. Big Daddy Phil.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Gage, before we close out the show? I know this is
not even anything ever. I make these shows the longest. Is this the longest show that we've done now?
I think it might be, although we did have a little bit of an issue starting, but I still think it's longer. Yeah.
Yeah. So I apologize.
No, it's not your fault. We had a lot to cover. So.
We did have a lot to cover. I'm very excited to be back, to reinvigorate, ready to talk about games.
Heck yeah. And this week you just got me, so sorry. Thank you to everyone joining us live on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, as well as podcast services everywhere, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Stitcher. Thank you, Gage. I am Daniel, and this has been Podcast PXN, and we are out. Much love, and keep on gaming.
God bless you, Juan.